So yes, the lymphatic system, you just as I say this sentence, you've made an average of 300,000 to 500,000 white blood cells, and that's going on throughout the day. And if you have a fairly healthy immune system, and you've got lymph nodes in your neck, your armpits, your breasts, your abdomen, your groin, your legs. In your abdomen alone, you have over 200 lymph nodes, and that includes the spleen, which is a giant lymph node that sits on top of the splenic flexure of the colon. But over and above that, in the colon itself, you have one entire layer of what's called lymphoid tissue. And this lymphoid tissue is responsible for as much as 80% of the removal of your dead white blood cells. So in other words, the daily amount and one of the primary functions of your white blood cells or lymphocytes is that they're garbage truck drivers. And if you look at the lymph at a microscopic level in a healthy immune system in live blood with dark field microscopy, you'll see that the healthy white blood cell will look like this clear round circle. And if there's something in the blood that's not supposed to be there, for example, undigested piece of food, or a fungus, or a cancer cell, or a heavy metal, whatever that is, one of the functions, the white blood cell identifies that invader and engulfs that invader and dissolves it. And in the process of dissolving it, that white blood cell dies. And that has a load. In other words, whatever it dissolved, it's carrying that load out with it. And that's why the colon is so important in relationship to your immune system, because if your colon backs up, your lymphatic system backs up, and your body is not able to carry out all the lymph that it needs to in terms of on a daily basis. And that's why during one of these pyoceremonies, you can drain as much as 5 gallons of dead lymph. We can accelerate that whole response. But in terms of how dependent your immune system is upon your colon, if you do not eliminate efficiently on a daily basis, this lymph starts backing up throughout your body and storing. And that's why, for example, there's a study done back in the 80s, and it was published in the Lancet, the relationship between women who had 2 or less bowel movements per week and an increase in breast cancer of 35% because of that. So, and that was back in the 80s. Now I think it's even more important for a number of reasons. But in any case, that's the primary relationship between the colon and the lymphatic system.
Yeah. How important is it not to hold on for the even let's say a person does make a couple of movements a day, but they're holding on for a long time before doing that? How is that damaging?
Well, it's a habit. You know, it's like anything. If you ignore your body, it's just like water, chronic dehydration. A lot of the people that I see that come in, they're all one of the first things they say was, "I don't feel thirsty," and that's because in the brain, in the frontal part of the brain, you have what's called the limbic system, and otherwise known as the lizard brain, and that's the part of the brain that handles basic survival mechanisms, and one of those being thirst. And so over a period of time, and some of these habits go way back. They can start with, years into childhood even, is that the brain will say, "I'm thirsty," and the person will ignore that. "Well, I can't drink right now. I don't have time," or I don't want to raise my hand in class, or I feel embarrassed, or, to go to the bathroom, or there's all kinds of reasons why. But over a period of time, that part of the brain gives up. It stops saying, "I'm thirsty." And so in terms of consciously drinking enough water, it takes time. But over a period of time, that system, that limbic system, becomes reactivated again. And it's the same idea with other functions of the body. If you ignore those functions, if you have a call to use the toilet, use the bathroom for a bowel movement, and you repress that, you ignore it, you say again, oh, I don't have time, I'll do it on my lunch break, whatever. Over a period of time, the trigger that handles that call to move your bowels becomes more and more suppressed, to the point where, because the colon is a muscular piece of tubing, it starts to stretch, it starts to lose its tone, and so people start holding more and more and more till pretty soon they can't use the bathroom, because they've ignored it so long. So they have to reestablish that habit again. And so when you ignore that, part of what happens is you back your immune system up. And so people oftentimes appear puffy in their abdomens, puffy throughout their bodies. It's because the lymph system has backed up and created inflammation, and that inflammation causes that puffiness. And over a period of time, the lymph nodes that I explained a moment ago become swollen and backed up, and they form adhesions. Adhesions form from irritation, and those adhesions actually plug the lymph nodes up. And there can be other reasons for that too. For example, people who used aluminum cookware. Aluminum is very small molecularly, and so what happens is that the aluminum, the very tiny molecular structures of aluminum, get caught up in the immune system and cause the lymph nodes to become congested. And so there can be other factors as to why the lymph nodes will swell, but it's basically inflammation from things backing up in the immune system. So that's why it's important to not ignore the call of nature, because that's a part of your immune system and your body's ability to remove the used up dead white blood cells.